on closed session items. No, we need. Then I will adjourn for closed session at 5:30.
All of first through fourth grade. It's about 1,000 kiddos a week, but it works. On Mondays, I work with first graders. And we sing, we do handheld rhythm instruments and kind of teaching about keeping the beat a little bit, which is helpful. And then Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm at Fremont with all of second and third. Of course, we do a lot of singing. This year we learned about the instruments of the orchestra, because I want them to know what the instruments look like and sound like. So when they're hearing music, they know what's going on. That's important. And then this next year, I'm excited about what we're doing for our main curriculum. Again, I've done it before. We're learning about jazz music. So we learn about, when it first started in the United States, and then about quite a few different jazz musicians. We watch a YouTube video of each musician and their group. So the students can actually, like, they're being there in person, even though it was a long time ago. So that's exciting. And then in fourth grade, excuse me, goodness, on Thursdays and Fridays, I'm at Mark Twain. And we learn to play a recorder. Okay, so we have a program called Recorder Karate, and they earn these belts that hang off of their recorder. And so that's pretty exciting to watch them accomplish things. I know this is the third year that we've done this. And after that first year, we had 100 students sign up for fifth grade band. So that's huge. And it's exciting to be able to feed these kiddos into our amazing middle school and high school programs, because we have phenomenal teachers in those. So I'm thankful to be a part of this opportunity. So we had invited, in fact, I'm just gonna close this because I don't need it. We had invited some students to join us tonight so they could sing for you. And it ended up, I had one third grader that was supposed to come, and I guess that didn't end up happening. A lot of the others have baseball practice and all this other stuff. So let me go ahead and then share with you what I'm going to share with you officially. Okay, so on the 30th of March, we had our first annual John C. Fremont Music Festival. That terminology should sound familiar to you. So we were all outside, as you can see up there. Second grade stood up and sang 2 songs and they had a seat, and then third grade stood up. They sang their 2 songs, they stayed standing, and second grade stood back up. And then all 464 kids sang 3 songs together. So we will do this every year, but we will always end our program with a song called Grateful Nation. I'm gonna try to keep my composure here. This talks about our military and being grateful for the way that they serve our country. And I first taught this 3 years ago. And in every single class, I said, okay, how many of you have a family member who either has been or is in the military? And so many kiddos raised their hand. And there again, in each class, by the time we got done singing that song the first time, there were lots of tears. And see, I'm choking up already. I can't help it. And so it's just so awesome to see these kiddos just sing this song from their heart. And they mean it with all their heart. And so I want to share this with you. You can't see all of the kids because of the way that the camera was positioned, but I know you'll be able to hear them. So this is called Grateful Nation.
So, obviously, we have a lot of people just excited about it. We are so grateful for the people who have served to keep our country safe. So many people serve in so many ways. We thank our officers, we thank our military servicemen, we thank those that have served, we thank those that every day put their life on the line. So we thank you. Now listen, it's a beautiful song.
Right. We got a little bit of extra sound effects there, so it'll be quite breezy that day. Anyway, so that's the highlight of our music festival, and like I said, I'm very grateful to be part of this program here and for the opportunity to work with all the kiddos. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could say something real quick, I just want to thank Ms. Bishop and, all the teachers that work with her to coordinate the support for our students to have these opportunities in music and the visual performing arts. And that's, again, the board's, vision to be able to provide that. And so just really thankful to be able to have this opportunity for our students. It's really great. What you didn't see there was a multitude of family members that were behind there.
There were about 300.
300, right, that were there watching that day. So smiles on their faces, seeing their kids just engage in the visual performing arts. So thank you so much again.
Parkland Joint Unified School District retirees.
Yes, I'm going to go to the podium for this one. So good evening, Board President De La Fuente, members of the board, staff and community. Tonight is bittersweet because we are going to be celebrating our staff who are retiring. And so there's two that are present tonight. There are several that aren't here. So what I'm gonna do is first is just name the ones who aren't, and then we'll bring up the two that are, okay? So the ones who are not here today, but are retiring and then we'll pause for them right at the end, is Lydia Martinez, who had 17 years of service in our district. Janice Westbay, who's had 18 years of service. Leanne Lucio, who had 22 years of service. Robert Lerma, Mr. Lerma, who had 29 years of service. Pearl Prince, who had 30 years of service, and Sylvia Gonzalez, who had 31 years of service. So let's just give them a hand real quick. I know they might be watching. You'll see it later tomorrow on our board highlights, and just want to thank all of them for their definitely commitment to our system, right? Whether it was 17 years or 31 years, I mean, that's commitment nowadays, especially when you see a lot of folks moving from place to place. And so this is just a testament to how much they appreciate our district. And so I want to thank them for that. So we have two that are here. So the first one I'm going to call up is Miss Elizabeth Reynoso. If you can come up, please. So Ms. Reynoso has 36 years of experience and commitment with our district and started in 1988. Yeah, so I want to thank you for being a teacher, right, to our students and some of our most needy students, and being able to be there with them. So we have a little memento for you, which it says Elizabeth Reynoso, and it has your years of service, 1988 to 2024. Okay, so I want to thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. And if would you like to say anything real quick?
Just that, I got here in 1988, I was hired by, oh my gosh. The principal was actually a wrestling coach for my brother. So as I've gone through the years, I've run into people that I know, and now I'm teaching their children. Anthony was one of my students. So it seemed just to be a good time to finally hang it up. But I've enjoyed every minute of it. And as for needy kids, oh my gosh, there are no less needy kids than the ones that were in my class. Let me tell you, they had their act together. I was the one that had to figure it out.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Barry, Steve Barry, with 33 years of commitment here to our district, started in 1991, and will be leaving us in June. And so let's just give Mr. Barry a hand as he comes up. So I know he's played a lot of roles in our system, right? And so a very cherished individual. So we have your oh, I gave you those don't speak. I'm actually gonna have him say a few words, so he can just say anything. But here's 1991 to 2024. But if you'd like to say a few words before.
Well, I'm not gonna read that, that's a little bit. Mr. Barry was hired in 1991 for the 91-92 school year as a fourth grade teacher. Since then, he has filled the following positions: fourth grade teacher, first grade teacher, high school video production elective, middle school resource teacher, middle school learning director, director of categoricals and testing, and finally, director of technology. He's been employed by Corcoran Unified for almost 33 years and has actually worked for about 20 of them.
We'll tag team. So here's some of the highlights that he's had. Key that they said about him. So Craig Wheaton said it took about 4 years before he figured out he could just say no and not get fired. So Mark Graville, former John Muir principal, he would always waste his time trying to talk to his students rather than just suspending them, which meant really that you were trying to meet their needs, right? Meet them where they're at. And then Mr. Merlo, the former superintendent, said that they gave him the technology position because he was the only one that could keep our devices online. But he also found out later that he was randomly unplugging internet cables, but he did a really good job. Right. So I want to just thank Mr. Mr. Steve Berry. I've worked with him closely for the last 3 years, or 3 years, 3 months. And but in that time, from day one, been very welcoming, very supportive. And so, and I know that the kids have always been in his heart. And it shows even what I know, him being even a member of the RAC board and other things, just being out there and really supporting the students. So I want to thank, we're going to miss you a lot. I want to thank you, Mr. Berry, for all your time and help here in the district.
Just real quick, the best thing out of my time working here for Corcoran Unified is sitting right there. Met my wife, fellow teacher, and married her. That's my highlight. And on the show.
I can't see.
Go this way, Valerie.
Okay.
Okay, no, we need you a little bit more, Valerie, that way, this way. There you go, there you go. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Got it. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Berry. And thank you for the speech too.
Board policy 4112.8, employment of relatives.
Yes, good evening, board president of Fuente, members of the board, staff and community. We just want to give you a quick, this is a receive that will be received in the board agenda. But I want to give a couple highlights of the work that we've been doing that's been the direction of the board. So board policy 4112.8 is the employment of relatives policy. And so we've had a small subcommittee that's been working on that, Trustee Vega and Cisneros, who have been helping out with that. So this is more of a report out. And then of course, in the subsequent meeting, you'll be able to provide feedback before then, and the subsequent meeting would be to actually approve the revised board policy. So our learning for today's outcomes for today is our roles. Oops, a little bit different. Gather feedback on the revised board policy. So we'll move with this. So that's we're going to review and gather feedback on the revised board policy. So the role of the district again is really looking at, this circle, right? Which in everything that we do, right, there's a function in place for everybody. So the family and community are here in Corcoran that vote in the trustees, right? The board then sets the conditions, the what, right? What policies, what budget, hires your one employee who's myself, the superintendent. And then from there, it gives direction to the superintendent that then goes to the district and provides the conditions so the district can be able to flourish and follow these board policies, right? So the policies are the what, right? The administrative regulations, just for folks in the audience who might be listening, what the difference is. The administrative regulations are the how we enact those policies, right? That the board sets forth. So I won't go through the rest of the circle, but that's definitely where this role rests. So again, these are the priorities that you'll be actually voting on for this coming this board meeting. But I wanted to put these in here because this is where you're going to see them on every presentation, right? To keep it front and center. And so really ensuring that we have our campuses and workplace to be safe, welcoming, and inclusive for all, that we have high expectations for students, that we're intentional about engaging our ed partners, right? All those areas, that's super important. And those are our priorities. And this policy rests within there, right? So our current reality, some things to kind of remember. Our district is in a rural community of roughly about 22,000 citizens. Okay, I believe that's Corcoran's population, right? Give or take. Over 80% of our classified staff are local Corcoran residents. That doesn't include our certificated, but which is less, but we still have quite a few classified employees that are coming from this town, which is pretty commonplace in most districts where you'll have the classified staff, which comes from the community, right? So if we were to look at Hanford or Lemoore, you'd probably see very similar, demographics, right? A lot of the classified staff coming from the town itself. The likelihood of some employee relations occurring are inevitable, right? So we know that there's gonna be some kind of connection there, okay? And our board identified the need to evaluate and revise our current board policy to match our current reality. So we want to make sure that the policy actually speaks to the reality and making sure there's clarity around what do we do when, and because we're small, what do we do when there's potential, lines that might have, some kind of negative or adverse, situation, right? And so conflict of interest. And so what we did was we looked at the process that we did in the subcommittee was look at other examples from other districts, right? And so we even looked at examples outside of districts. So we looked at institution policy, we looked at the city policy, which, I was grateful that we had those two kind of frameworks as well. And then we kind of drafted from that, looking at all these pieces of information, what would be a good policy for our district, for Corcoran, right? And then we drafted that and then sent it to legal to be able to say, here's what is accurate, here's something that you want to consider. And so what you see in the agenda packet, and actually I think there's a copy on your desk area, is the first draft of this policy, which looks a lot different than the previous one, because I believe the previous one was only like a couple paragraphs long. This one actually has some pieces I'm gonna kind of highlight here. And again, this is a receiving, and you're gonna definitely have an opportunity to give feedback, and then the committee will meet again when we get that feedback and then redraft, right? And then bring forward the final version, okay? So we redefined close relative, right? I'm not gonna read them all, but to kind of have those areas in place, okay? And make sure that that was aligned to what current policy says. There's also some new pieces. We didn't have cohabitant, I believe, defined in our previous one. And so we defined what cohabitant is, because we find that that is something that is actually more of a reoccurrence nowadays, right? People might be cohabitating. And so we want to make sure that that was in there as well in the policy. And then we also looked at adding additional elements for trustees, which that wasn't in place before. So they actually give some clarity as well as, I believe, protection for the trustees, because at that point you have that in the policy itself. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it talked about what about hiring, the hiring of someone, right? And also it also talks about the disclosures of the relationship between a board member and someone, as they're voting, right? So that's in there as well. And so know that those are kind of the new pieces that were there that weren't there in the previous version of the board policy, which is currently our policy right now, right? Okay. And so with that, the next steps are to approve the board policy, right? And even before that, I put this on here, but to get any feedback that you have. So you definitely can provide feedback, now, or you can just, email it one way or the other. And then the committee, we would get back together, look at that feedback if there's any, and then refine it, and then bring it back for a final read and approval, if that's the will of the board, right? Once that policy is developed, then we would develop an administrative regulation, which we don't have. So what we have is the how, or we have the what, right now, but we don't have the how. And what the how will allow us to do is to be able to have a system, a process in place for when we talk about hiring, right? So what does the makeup of a panel look like, right? In the scope of this policy, right? So you're saying it in the what, now we're gonna take that administrative regulation and move it into the how. So that would be to develop that, but we can't develop it until we get the policy first, right? And then we would bring that back to the board as an information only item, right? Okay, and so then you would have that administrative regulation. So that would actually memorialize the process, so then it's not left up to happenstance, right? Which we've kind of had before, because it wasn't memorialized or codified in our process. So again, we're doing the BP first, the what, and then the AR will deliver the how. Okay, and so that's pretty much it. Any questions that you have?
Just a question on the how. So the items that we discussed as far as another, like a letter that they would sign when they're applying, noting whether they had relevance or not, that would be in the how.
That would be the how, yes.
And then another question here on it says that the board prohibits the hiring manager from participating in the hiring process. I would like to also include perhaps the relative of that person, that they cannot be a panel member.
Yes.
So would that be in the how?
That would be in the how, but that actually would be here, so it might be that's a good catch, so it might be where it's really, when we discussed it, it was if the hiring manager was related to somebody, that they wouldn't be there, so I'll definitely make sure that that's in there. And we'll take it.
It's not a relative to the
Yes.
candidate.
Right, yeah, and that's part of the reason why we went down this path, yeah. Okay, so this is I just wanted to kind of highlight it here. It'll be received later in the agenda, but it was just for information, so all of you knew what was coming forward, as well as the staff and the public. Okay.
Twenty 24-25 Board of Trustees priorities, second read.
Yeah, so this is again, just a quick review of the board policy, the priorities that you established back when we had the meeting with Mr. Garza, remember that? And so we did the kind of what are the priorities of the board, voted on it, there was a process and he facilitated that. And you kind of landed on 3 big items, right? And so I'm just gonna share with you the kind of final version of the language for this, and then you have it in front of you in your desk, and then we'll go from there. So our roles, in student success, why we need to be intentional in our priorities and looking ahead, but those are kind of our learnings for today. So again, the role of the district, I'm not gonna go over this anymore, but again, this is at the board level, right? The conditions. So these priorities actually are kind of like our North Star, right? In many ways, okay? And I'm very proud of the board because as you wrestled as a group to identify these 2 priorities, you're actually very aligned to our LCAP, right? Which our CBO, Mr. Price, will talk about today. And so if you recall, right, our Mr. Garza talked about how, you all worked really well together to develop these priorities, which was pretty amazing. And then for us to look back and say, these are aligned to what our LCAP are. Our LCAP priorities are based on our public sentiment. What they're saying are the priorities. So they're really aligned. So that shows that there's a big alignment to what you're thinking and what the community is thinking, which isn't always the case, right? So I want to thank you all for that leadership. So again, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it does. There's individual pockets of excellence right now. And we see that happening. And if you've walked with me on campuses, we've kind of seen that, where there's some places where there's some really good things happening and others where we need some work, right? Those are individual pockets of excellence, right? And part of that reason is because we just have not been clear with the priorities, right? But you are laying that groundwork today, that foundational work, which is so key, so pivotal to us moving forward, right? And so when we get those 3 priorities adopted, then what happens is we have shared goals now, shared priorities. Those priorities again are aligned to the LCAP, but then at that point, our principals align to their school site plans for student success, single plan for student success or achievement. And that's where the alignment happens. And we go from these kind of arrows all over the place to all arrows pointed in the same direction, okay? So our board's work, again, this was the day that I just mentioned. And so we worked with Mr. Garza and he facilitated that. And you have evidence there of, working through those priorities, right? And so it was a really good evening of learning and really just putting it on the table, right? This is where we want to show that these are priorities. So with that, we went ahead and took your, if you remember the last version, I had in parentheses kind of the big things you talked about, right? Which you would have seen safe schools. Okay, we expanded a little bit to kind of make it into a statement, right? And these are the final statements, okay? So we are ensuring our campuses and workplaces to be safe, welcoming, and inclusive for all. That's a priority, okay? And I'm gonna show you what this looks like to move to action, okay, in the next slide. We are ensuring staff have high expectations for each and every student by providing them innovative, high quality, grade level instruction so they can become successful adults, right? This is something that you had all kind of agreed upon. And the last one is we are intentional about engaging our students, staff, and families on a continuous basis from the board to the classroom. Okay, and this is really having intentional engagement, and that's why we want to make sure that we use the word intentional. Because it wasn't just, and we heard from the board that night, it wasn't just come to literacy night or come to a basketball game or a football game, right? It was really about being intentional about having our families have deep engagement in our work, right? And so that's what we want to make sure that was called out. Okay. And so what this looks like, if we were to put this into action, right? So this is again a draft, but our vision for 2024 and beyond, you're giving us the what, right? Here are the 3 priorities, here are the what. The strategies are the how, right? Which the district team begins to look at. We are ensuring our campuses and workplaces to be safe, welcoming, and inclusive for all. Staff would know that these strategies would be the ones to address those, right? Tiered systems of support, that we work on that. And so you as a board actually have started that process with the contract with CLS that actually has them coming in to identify where our strengths and weaknesses in our tiered system support. And that work actually already started. They just completed their interviews with 10 groups of staff members classified certificated management, right? And some other partners to be able to identify what our strengths and weaknesses. They're gonna come back with a report at the end of June to you, the board. Another strategy is gonna be effective classroom management, that we really focus there, right? And be able to see, does every classroom have effective classroom management? Okay, in my listening sessions, I did have teachers that said on my one-on-ones, like, I'm really working on classroom management, but maybe some of my peers aren't. So when a student comes from one classroom to another, that's because there's inconsistencies, then there's inconsistencies in behaviors, right? And that's something that was called out at every school. And so I'm not going to read all of them, but this will kind of just give you some ideas. And the second priority, ensuring that staff have high expectations for each and every student by providing them innovative, high quality, grade level instruction. That's like the work that Mr. Jen and Mrs. Mendoza are doing with assessments, curriculum, and standards. So we just had our final assessment audit committee meeting with our teachers that gave voice to what assessments do we have to have for the future, because remember my listening session said we're testing too much. So they're working with that group, and it's teacher focused and teacher driven to be identify what does this look like then, right? That's part of that work. Okay, that's how that strategy, that we move the what into the how into action. Okay. Another one is keeping essential tools for students and teachers. We heard loud and clear that we probably use too much tech, right? A little too much, we're too tech dependent. And so what tools and resources do we need to keep, and which ones do we have to kind of pare back, right? And that's a strategy. And the last one, we are intentional about engaging our students, staff, and families on a continuous basis from the boards of the classroom. Well, this year I had my listening sessions, and the last, I believe I've been here, this will be day 73, right? It's about 3 months, but in work days, about 73 days. I did listening sessions. So what you're gonna see next year is I'm gonna have advisories. So we're gonna have a teacher advisory, a classified advisory, we already have our management one, but then a community one, right? Also, student advisories at every level, and those will remain. So each one will have a little bit different frequency because some will want to meet more often than others. But the goal is to make sure that there's a constant feedback loop, which all of you have kind of said in one way, shape, or form. Make sure that you're going to the end user. Are you getting those feedback loops? That's here, that intentional engagement, right? And it's not just about like, hey, let's have coffee and donuts, right? That's not intentional. The intentionality is going to be around, here are our goals. Are we doing these things, these priorities? How's it going? And where do we need to grow, right? That's intentionality. The next thing is, is the site leaders are gonna be doing the same thing. Okay, so you're gonna see them have advisories as well, right? And we started to do that a little bit at John Muir. And so that will continue through all schools. And the last thing I'll say is the parent engagement, which I think is important. So we've heard you loud and clear, right? We've also heard the community. How do we get better engagement? So our team has worked hard, Mr. Jen and Ms. Mendoza and team, to really look for quality parent engagement. And so you approved in the last board meeting, a contract with Parent University out of Fresno State, and they're going to be providing sections of courses around different things like how to get your kid into college, how to engage with your students in their academic experience in school. So those are all pieces that are intentional, right? And so that again is happening because of the what, right? We wouldn't have that. And if we didn't have the priorities, then the how, we would be looking like this, remember? The arrows on the left. Because like all these things are happening, but what are they tied to? Okay, and so that's where we're really focusing here. So I'm really just proud of the board for being courageous and honest and genuine and saying these are the things that we need to put forward. Okay, so that's what it looks like for action for strategies in 24-25, which are very much aligned to our LCAP and will be aligned to our SBSA. Okay, and so with that, any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Will the board be receiving updates as far as what the advisories meet? What was the outcome?
Yes.
Quarterly?
You read my mind. So thank you for saying quarterly. So one of the things that you're gonna see happen next year is we're gonna begin to tie some small indicators to each of the priorities. And those will be tied to our work, right, as a district. And we will present those to you on a quarterly basis. That will eventually evolve because the reason why I say 24-25 is because we have to set some foundational pieces in place, right? During this coming year in 24-25, we're gonna embark on the development of the strategic plan. That will be long-term, 5 years, right? And then that'll shift again, but we will come always on a quarterly basis to say, where are we at the status on these areas, right? And what's going on. Sometimes it might be all of them, sometimes it might be a few that we highlight, depending on the time. But you'll know, but also the community will know, right? And we will have, we're gonna use colors, like a stoplight, we're gonna have green, we're gonna have yellow, and we're gonna have red. And we're gonna be transparent. And when we see a red, this is why that's happening. And sometimes reds are gonna have to happen because we need something else to be yellow and green first, right? So they're not all gonna be green, they're not all gonna be red. But we're gonna come to you quarterly to be transparent and be able to show you where we're at. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you. Reports, middle school.
Good evening, board members.
Excuse me, can you push the button?
Good evening, board members, district administrators, parents, and community members. My name is Lana Gomez and I'm the ASB president at John Muir Middle School. Thank you for letting me share some of the great things that are going on at our campus. Here's a snapshot of what's going on at JMX. The last 2 weeks have been busy for the students who earned field trip experiences. The Kinesiology Club visited Fresno Pacific, and making the grade student winners got to enjoy a Fresno Grizzlies game. And the CJUSD students ended last week with a trip to Monterey. This week, the 8th grade students who have qualified for promotion will go on the promotion field trip at John and Curtin Pizza. The next week, our 6th and 7th graders will finish off the fun by visiting the rack pool to get out the heat just before summer. Mr. Gina and his band gave a great spring concert last summer that demonstrated all of their talents, and Mr. Hodgson and his theater program gave 2 awesome performances of It's a Madhouse. The first annual Dream Mess Student Showcase was a great success. As hundreds of parents and students came to see what John Muir is all about, performances by Mr. Gina and his drumline and entire band were amazing, and the cheer squad led by Miss Reed showed off their spirit. Mr. Mears led a Zumba dance and provided free show snow cones. The entire evening was meant to introduce the many opportunities that John Muir has for incoming students regarding clubs, elective and extracurricular activities. To top it off, there were free street taco meals and for all those who were there. Our eighth grade students are making final preparations for their upcoming promotion ceremony on June 5th at 7 o'clock. We'd like to invite you all to attend the great event. As the end of the school year is quickly approaching, all of us at John Muir would like to thank you for your support and allowing us to share with you at each board meeting.
Thank you. High school.
Good evening, everyone. I am Candace Hernandez, the ASB president. I'm here to bring the high school report. We had the end of the year rally last Friday, and the theme was Peace Out Seniors, and we had our drumline do performance for the rally. All athletics programs have concluded for the 2023-2024 school year. CHS won several team and individual recognitions. We also held our athletics award ceremony last week and recognized our scholar athletes and most valuable participants. We held our senior award ceremony over and around 506,000 plus, and a CSU Fresno Smith Camp winner were awarded. The senior picture was done with the graduates' cap and gowns, and it was taken the same day as senior awards. We had our first college signing day to recognize the students that signed their intent for college. Tomorrow, the seniors will be convened in the auditorium for their first official instructions for graduation week, including all of the organized activities and practices. Graduation is next week on Thursday, June 6th. We are looking at approximately 170 graduates who received their diplomas. CHS is prepping for their school summer program to support students in accumulating needed credits. This is the first year CHS will be offering in-person physical education classes during the summer to both provide needed PE credits, but also to help our athletes strengthen their bodies prior to fall season of sport. Preparations are already being made for football, cheer, band, and other groups for the fall season.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
Yes, good evening, President, the Puente, members of the board, speak real short. Thank you again to our students who provide us with that information. It was really just great to see this time of year. May is like a busy time of year for our school districts with all the festivities. And so just to see all of that happen wouldn't be possible without our staff. So I just want to thank our staff. We celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week a couple weeks ago. And then last week was classified, appreciation week. So I want to thank our classified employees too, because they are a vital part of our district. So thank you to them. And then the last thing I'll say is, as it gets warmer, we have 2 weeks left, about a little bit less than 2 weeks left to go, right? A couple of things to keep in mind. The first is the heat, right? So if you parents, if you please, anybody that's watching out there, just keep your kids hydrated. We have a lot of hydration stations, water, some other things out there for kids to be able to hydrate. And so make sure that you're providing that for them. And the other thing is with the heat also comes, shortness in how we behave, right, and how we act. And so parents, just if you can remind your students, and those of you that are in the community as well, I know we have a great community that wraps around each other, and just reminding folks that let's have a little bit of grace and patience, right? Because we're all hot. Today, I think it was like 91. It's gonna only get hotter. And so we just have that, and then again, if there's anything that you see that might be negative, please if you see something, say something, especially parents with their children, so we can go ahead and respond. So again, that's all I had today. I yield my time, Madam President.
Thank you. Board of Trustees.
So I'd like to thank Kings Lake, Fremont, and John Mayer for allowing me to tour their campuses. Your students were very friendly and I appreciated that. Also wanted to congratulate the girls varsity softball team on making it to the third round of playoffs. I don't know if that's a first or not, but that was pretty awesome to see them go that far, and Porter PD escorted them out on one of their games, which was neat. Also wanted to thank the high school for live streaming the scholarships. I was able to play them in the background at work. I think everybody thought I was listening to something strange or something, because they're like, that's coming from your office, and they're just clapping all over. So those students, two of those ladies just left right now, for high school students, and they received quite a bit of scholarships. So I'm very pleased that our community gives back. And I also saw that you were there, Teresa, giving an award, and thank you for doing that as well.
Well, I think I'm gonna echo you a little bit, but I also toured Mark Twain and Bret Hart, and then it's amazing how when you tour, the kids actually wanna, they're interested in what you're doing there, and they call us teachers too. Hi, teacher, hi, teachers. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. So it's really good to be touring. I appreciate that. I got to learn a lot about the music program that they're having over at Mark Twain. I wasn't aware that the John Muir teacher actually goes over there and helps as well. So we're hopefully gonna have a very good band in John Muir, and hopefully as well in the high school. I also attended the Excellence of Education in Hanford ceremony. It was amazing. I really loved the fact that they videoed the kids, and the kids were able to say exactly how they felt about some teachers and what they liked and what they didn't like. And it just shows a lot that their teachers are out there giving back and helping and really caring about the students. So it makes it really worthwhile. I attended the FFA Awards and the Scholarship Awards and the Athletic Awards. And it's amazing how some of the students, I'm humbled in front of these kids, because they're a scholar athlete, they are amazing, they're racing a calf or a cow or something, and then they're in sports, and how do they find the time? So again, thank you so much for that, and it's all a tribute to the teachers how they're helping the students. I did also attend the mental health walk this weekend, as well as some of the community members. So it was really good support. There was so many people there, and unfortunately, with everything that's going on in the world, we need some support when it comes to that, because I'm sure that these kids that are exceeding and everything, excelling, they have some concerns as well, that they need someone to talk to. So I appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Business Officer.
Good evening, board members and everyone in attendance this evening. This evening, I'm going to go ahead and present the 24-25 budget overview. This is after the May revise has been released as of May 10th. The May revise is actually any changes that are being made to the governor's budget that he's announced since January. So in January, he stated that there might be a 0.76% COLA, and now we know that he has actually enacted a 1.07% COLA, which I'll go ahead and touch on in this presentation tonight. So our learning for today, outcomes for today, we're going to go over our roles within the budget development, the state's current reality, our current reality, and any questions at the end. So the outcomes for today, we want to identify the role of the district and the board in regards to the budget development. Understand the current reality of the state budget for 24-25 fiscal year, and assess the current financial status of the district. So the role of the district, I know we've seen this a couple times tonight, but this graphic really calls out the importance that each subgroup plays in the success of Portland students. Because each subgroup, whether it's the family of the community that elect the board members that set the conditions and hire the superintendent then takes those conditions from the board and puts it into a plan, shares that with the school leadership. School leadership then takes that to their teachers and staffs, disseminates that information. The teachers and staffs take that into the classroom. So each subgroup in this cycle actually plays a vital role in the success of the student support rate. Our board priorities for the 24-25, ensuring our campuses and workplaces to be safe, welcoming, and inclusive for all. Ensure staff have high expectations for each and every student by providing them innovative, high quality, grade level instruction so they can become successful adults. And be intentional about engaging our students, staff, and families on a continuous basis from the board to the classroom. And as you will see, our budget is built around these priorities. So the board's responsibility, the role of the board when it comes to budget development, they establish budget priorities, use a budget development process that ensures the budget reflects and reinforces the district's goals, monitor and support the implementation of the budget, review and audit the budget, and communicate the budget and be accountable to the community. So right here is the board members give us parameters that we need to build this budget. I then take those parameters, meet with the cabinet team, and build the budget on the parameters that the board has set for us. So here's a current reality of the state's budget for 24-25. Okay, as you can see in the governor's budget in the governor's 24-25 budget may revise. So in the center there, you'll see that the COLA is 1.07%. For the 24-25 year. So that's going to, that means our LCFF, our LCFF local control funding formula will receive a 1.07% COLA, as well as any state revenues. The caveat to this COLA is that our federal revenues, such as Title I, do not receive the annual COLA. The next half circle out was no deferrals. So within the May revise, Governor Newsom did not mention anything about deferrals to K-12 educational funding. This is huge. This means that we will receive our allocations monthly like we're supposed to. And then that red circle, Prop 98. So they're proposing that $8.4 billion be withdrawn from Prop 98 rainy day fund to help shorten the budget, to help close the gap with the budget shortfall. The budget shortfall is we still have 27.6 billion in shortfall dollars with this budget. So beyond that, for the state is actually recommending the 24 and the 25-26 COLA will be a 2.93% COLA. We're not sure about deferrals. Deferrals may happen in the outlying years if the shortfall continues to grow. And then the Proposition 98, and at the end of the 24-25 fiscal year, Proposition 98 will be completely completed. That means the state will not have any more Proposition 98 rainy day funds. So that right there could help increase the shortfall of the state's deficit if they continue to go in a negative direction. Now, this is the risk in the current and outlying years. So what we know so far, 24-25, they're depleting the rainy day fund. The delays of $550 million in contributions to California preschool, transitional kindergarten, and full day kindergarten facilities grants programs. So they've actually slashed the UPK and the TK facilities program by $550 million. They've completely eliminated $870 million for one-time school facilities program. And Assembly Bill 106 includes 17.3 billion in early action solutions to reduce the projected shortfall from 44.9 billion to the 27.6 billion that Governor Newsom reported in May. Beyond 24-25, these are the factors that are going to affect budget. The big three sources of revenue: personal income tax, corporation and sales and use taxes, are projected to be lower in the May revise by $10.5 billion than what was reported in January. Rainy day reserves are completely depleted. The budget shortfall will continue to grow, and stagnation is currently happening in the state of California, which is slow economic growth. We're experiencing slow economic growth, but we also are still receiving the rise in inflation, and unemployment is on the rise as well.
So before you move on, I just want to comment one thing too. So for example, bullet 2 on the left, right, the UPK, the transitional kindergarten. The state didn't remove the plan to continue with that. What they're saying is you still have to do it. We're just not gonna pay for it, right? So what they're and correct if I'm wrong, Mr. Price, but it's what they're saying is that, you know, it's on the district. They can maybe do it through a bond or something else. So that's their current, again, they're in the process of doing this, is not settled yet. But that was kind of the thing, which has been classic for the state in the past, right? We have this idea, we're gonna put it forward, we'll cover it for a little bit. Now it's in motion, you have to figure it out. So that's one example of the kind of planning that's taking place. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, next, the framework for a healthy budget. So as you can see at the bottom, the board's guiding principles, that sets the foundation for a healthy budget at any LEA. We have to have the guiding principles, and the board's guiding principles is what help us create a sound budget. And those guiding principles, the budget is student focused, maintaining fiscal solvency for current and future years. And our decisions are based on data, facts, and research. The next above that is our state and federal plans, which our major plan is the LCAP, Local Control Accountability Plan, which is about $15 million of our general fund. And that's where we meet with our educational partners each year and develop the LCAP. We also have the CONAP, which is the reporting for all of our federal funding. And then we have one-time funding reports such as the ESSER reports, the long learning recovery emergency block grant report, and the arts and music discretionary block grant report. And then we have local plans, our site plans, our SIPSAs, and our internal initiatives that we may have at the district that we want to put in place. Okay, so here's our budget, our return reality. Here's our budget at a glance. So 24-25, we're slated to get to receive $48.2 million in LCFF funding. The COLA only affects state funds such as LCAP. Federal revenues such as Title I do not receive the statewide COLA. LCFF funding is 80% of the district's annual revenues. Our enrollment which is 3,189. Now, our enrollment has decreased from 2022. So for the last 2 years, our enrollment has decreased by 111 pupils. In 2024, 2025, our enrollment will drop by 48 pupils. This is the increase received by the COLA is mitigated by the loss of enrollment, which I'll touch base on that in future slides. The fund balance has increased because of the reallocation of expenditures for the facility projects at Corcoran High School and Kings Lake Educational Center. So the expenditures that we were going to spend on Kings Lake and on the science wing at Corcoran High School was actually shifted out of general fund and moved into the modernization fund. So we'll not touch general fund. And then our local reserve cap. This is a caveat. So our local reserve cap is set, the state has set the local reserve cap at 10%. So what that means is the LEAs, any district, our reserve of assigned and unassigned funds cannot be 10% of our annual expenditures for that year. Last year, Corcoran was right at 9.9%. Of our reserves were almost at that 10%, which is very good because of the fact the state recommends that we keep a 3% or 3 months of salary and utilities in reserves if something was to take an economic downturn in the state. However, with the great guidance from the board, we actually are sitting at 7 months of salaries and utilities that we could pay with our reserves if the state was to do a downturn and they were not to send us any more money. So if they said they ran out of money tomorrow, we could still guarantee that we're going to pay our people and make our payments on time for the next 7 months. Hopefully by then the state will have a plan in place. Next is a closer look at the COLA. So as you can see, the COLA, if we didn't experience any decline in enrollment, we would have had that 1.07% COLA. We would have had it in its entirety. However, with the 48 enrollment, the 48 pupils that we're losing, it's actually the COLA is making it a wash for our LCAP, our LCFF funding this year. So if we were to receive that COLA, if we weren't to lose those 48 students, we would have received a $738,078. However, since we did lose those 48 students, now we're looking at, we're at a deficit of $738,078. So that's money that's left out there because we have declined enrollment. On top of that, we have to also think about the ongoing costs for our non-state funds. So these are any employees that are funded with Title I, that are being paid out of Title I or any federal funding. So with their step and column increase, that's an additional $15,735 in those programs. So we're potentially looking at, since we declined enrollment, we're at a loss of $753,813. However, with your guidance, we are still in the black by $383,000 for the 24-25 school year. Just circling back around, just want to circle back around. So just to recap, 1.7% COLA 24-25. However, we do know that's not true. We're going to be, we could experience a $730,000 increase in revenues, but since we are declining enrollment, we're at a wash this year. No deferrals, $8.4 billion in Proposition 98 rainy day funds is going to be withdrawn and released into Prop 98, which that's going to actually deplete that entire reserve. And then the budget shortfall is 27.6 billion, but it can grow in the future out years if the state doesn't practice any financial conservative. And if they're not financially conservative or prudent with their budget, that the shortfall can actually increase in the outlying years. Again, this is our just touching base on our budget at a glance. Like I said, we are declining enrollment of 48 this year, which is a wash to our increase in COLA. Our fund balance is increased because of the reallocation of the expenditures for this facility projects at Corcoran High School and Kings Lake Education Center and the 10% reserve cap. So this is our turn now. We're actually in fiscal, we're actually to the good. We're in good financial health right now. But these are the variables that we must follow and that we must be cognizant about if we want to remain in good standings. Those variables are follow the board's guiding principles. We must follow the board's guiding principles and not deviate from the plan. Maintain healthy reserves with looming budget shortfalls. So we must make sure to, in each year, increase our aiding fund balance to make sure that we have the reserves in place just in case there's an economic downturn within the state. And then maintain a healthy relationship with our labor partners to do what's best for workers. So this year at the negotiating table, there's not going to be that much funds. As you can see, we're at a wash. So we're just going to have to really bridge the gap with our relationships and to do what's best. All parties involved do what's best for Portland and for the students of Portland.
And one of those things real quick, sorry, before you move on the third bullet is we see that, you know, again, we want to do what's best for Corcoran, and sometimes what we find is that some districts are used as an example for others, right? And so we want to make sure that our partners understand that really what we want to focus on is making sure that we're always in that green area, right? The good, and not like some other districts throughout the state or even in our local area that have negotiated way above and beyond, and then now they're really getting cuts, et cetera, because of that. So that's kind of what that third bullet is really speaking to.
Any questions?
I have two.
Yes, ma'am.
So what percentage of the budget that we're allowed it goes to salaries and benefits?
That is roughly about 70%, 76% of our budget goes to salary and benefits.
And do you have any idea why the decline of enrollment?
The decline in enrollment, no, I've been actually, I was looking at this different school sites that has declined. I know it's some of our John Muir has declined over the years, and our John C. Fremont had declined over the 2 years. I haven't figured out why that's occurring, but I could go ahead and I could do some more research and get back to the board on that.
Curious as to why the community is choosing to enroll their kids somewhere else.
Yes, ma'am.
It doesn't sound like we've bounced back with our ADA since COVID, though. I think that's been one of the biggest issues.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm understanding this correctly, it sounds like we won't have enough to cover payroll.
No, we will have enough to cover payroll. Yes.
Without covering, without hitting the reserves?
Yes, without any
Okay.
interest, yes. That's why it says at the end of the 24-25 fiscal year,
Uh-huh.
we're actually, our ending fund balance is actually increasing by 383,000. So we won't go into the red, make sure we're staying fiscally solvent, and we're not going into the red.
Thank
For the
you.
next fiscal year.
For the AS and the next two outlying fiscal years as well, sir. Mhm. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Corcoran Faculty Association, CFA. Public comment. Members of the public wanting to provide public comments on items listed on tonight's agenda, we recommend you fill out a public comment form on the table in the forum and hand it to Gina Gonzalez before the item comes up on the agenda. We recommend you complete a separate form for each agenda item you want to comment on. Members of the public providing public comment, please use the microphone on the podium in the middle of the boardroom.
Madam President, do we have a CSEA report?
No, no report.
Thank you.
Public hearing. I will now open the public hearing to allow for public comment when considering the approval of Corcoran Faculty Association proposal for 2024-25 collective bargaining negotiations and the Corcoran Joint Unified School District's proposal for Corcoran Faculty Association 2024-25 collective bargaining negotiations. No comment. I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve the receiving of the Corcoran Faculty Association's proposal for the 2024-25 collective bargaining negotiations?
That was just a second reading.
Yeah, it was a second reader it's just a receiving of it, not approving it,
So you want a motion to
just to receive it, yeah. You're only receiving, not approving any of the item
Okay,
I'll make the motion.
no second.
to receive. Yeah, to receive.
Any discussion? Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa,
Aye.
Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Consider approval of the Corcoran Joint Unified School District's proposal for Corcoran Faculty Association's 2024-25 collective bargaining negotiations. Do we have a motion to approve the district's proposal? To receive the proposal.
I'll motion to receive the proposal.
All second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa, I, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Action items, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
Motion to approve.
I will second. Any discussion? Roll call. Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa, I, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Administration, consider approval of the memorandum of understanding between the University of California and Merced for the Merced Automatic Admissions Program.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Do you have a brief summary of this?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank, just the board and the community know that what this is doing is giving our students guaranteed admissions to UC Merced at the end of their first semester of their junior year, if they meet all the qualifications. And so I think it's a pretty amazing thing that we're able to get that in place so that again meets back to those priorities. So I want to thank the board, for this work.
Any discussion? Roll call. Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa, I, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Consider their approval of the following handbooks. Corcoran Joint Unified School District, Red Heart, John C. Fremont, Mark Twain Elementary Schools, John Muir Middle School, Corcoran High School, Kings Lake Education Center, and Mission Community Day School. Do I have a motion?
Could I ask for more time to review those? Because I saw some inconsistencies with the school board and some of the school sites.
And you can choose, you want to table it, we can bring it back.
Motion. Table.
Roll call, Valerie, Teresa, Sammy, and I. Consider approval of the independent contractor services agreement with Susan Talcoff to assist with special services department.
Question. Should I have one more question about this contract? Whose responsibility is it to conduct IEPs?
It is,
What staff level is what I'm asking?
yeah, it's,
I'm not asking for names.
yeah, it's the teachers that are initially, and then we have also our director of pupils, our special services that also can answer that, but the teacher is the one that oversees the IEP, they're the case manager. And then the district office provides support.
Is it the teacher assigned to the student?
For the most part, yes, for the most part, yes. Yeah,
You're confusing me.
Yes, it is.
Whose responsibility is it to complete the IEP for the student?
It's the teacher of record, the case manager.
Teacher of
Yeah.
That's question number one. Question number two, the last 4 years, how many students? Have we had an increase of 40 students that required IEPs?
I wouldn't know that offhand, but
We've had increase,
you can come up to the podium so you can.
yes, the district has, experienced an increase in special education qualifications. So right now, we are looking at 342 students, we're at 298, we also have outstanding
What are the
IEPs.
numbers for the last 4 years?
I can give you the last 2 years, the last 2 years were at
So
three,
we're
three,
20, 22, 23?
yes.
Okay.
So we're at 324 last year, we're up to 340 this year.
340 this year. Okay.
And one of the contributors to that is that the district now is responsible for doing our own child find. So it's child find is a law for all districts to find students who may have disabling criteria, may qualify for special education services. Those are students who are not school age, so 4 years old, which we did not used to do that before. Our Kings County South used to do that, and now it's our responsibility to do that. So our psychologists now have to go into preschools and other settings to
And in the last 4 years, how many psychologists, you said psychiatrists?
psychologists.
How many psychologists have we added to the district?
In the last, well, since I have 2 years, none, I don't think Randy had 3.
But I know we've increased that.
Yeah, I think we have 3. Well, I know we have 3. Solid 3
How many have
psychiatrists.
we increased is what I'm asking.
I think there was only 1 at one point, so I think you've increased by 2.
So you have a total of 3?
Yes, 3.
And how did we get to 40 that were behind?
Well, the IEPs have to be affirmed, so in order for IEP to be affirmed, they have to be vetted, so in order to be vetted, they have to be read by the case manager.
You're talking to an uneducated board member.
So an
How
IEP,
did we get to the point where we're 40 positions behind, where we're asking this board to spend $50,000 on a consultant to come in and assist that department, when we have increased that department in the last 4 years?
I can go ahead and answer some of them. So part of it is that, like what Ms. Copeland's saying, is that there's been an increase in special education students, and not just here in Portland, but across the board. But in addition to that, we might have increased the department at the site level, but we haven't increased the support at the district level to provide that check and balance, the affirming of the IEPs. And so in essence, that department is a department of 1 certificated manager and a secretary. And so for the number of, and that's why we're doing the org audit, is because part of it is we might have the personnel power at the site level, but there's a check and balance to the IEP because it is a legal document. We're talking about, multiple pages with well over 1,000 boxes that need to be checked that, we don't have that resource in place. So coming in, one of the recommendations that, I made was, the org audit, but also to be able to provide the support because we need to be able to not just affirm those 40 IEPs, but there's also a check and balance in making sure the IEPs are written correctly. And so not only is this person going to support Ms. Copeland at the district level to provide that that layer of support there, but also to go back and vet the IEPs and then identify some gaps and then provide some support and training for the teachers who are the case managers for those IEPs. So that's why this is here. It's up to $50,000. The contract is, and this is a veteran special education administrator to be able to provide that service. I mean, I'll just be frank with the board. We're gonna need to find some type of help because we don't have the structure in place in order to do that. So the issue becomes then is if we don't have IEPs affirmed and written the correct way, then those open up the door for litigation. And we don't want to have that happen because with the reserves that Mr. Price was talking about can definitely be depleted in a short amount of time if we end up going down that path. And that's really what this is for, is to provide that somewhat quasi insurance, if you want to call it, to be able to get these IEPs affirmed and taken care of. And it doesn't just boil down to the 40, it's more than that. And so really that's the weight that you have, that you as a board need to be able to, weigh on.
I don't think my question was answered, but thank you.
So that leads me to a question for myself. So if we get this contract now for the 50,000 and we complete these 40 or whatever they're behind, what does that mean ongoing after this project? So next year, if we are lacking staff again, will we have to go through this again?
No, I think at that point, we'd be able to see that we are running lean in that area. And I'm pretty confident that the org audit's gonna show that. Just talking to school services initially, we kind of gave them some initial kind of what our structures are like, and they already have identified that we are short in some areas. So we would probably come back to you as a board with additional FTE to support that. But right now, we're running extremely lean in, especially in the special services area. And I did share in a board communication, a board update, the numbers of where we're at in comparison to the county, that we're pretty high. And so we want to make sure that the last thing I'll say is this, is when Ms. Copeland's talking about child find, part of it is we're trying to figure out as well, are students actually being identified the correct way? And so if we're kind of putting, IEP upon IEP without really truly looking at it and vetting it, then we might actually have students that are misplaced. And that also becomes, a potential liability. And so that's where this, $50,000 investment is to ensure that we don't go down that path.
Is this contract for off-site work or is it on-site work?
Both. It's for both, because they don't need to necessarily be here all the time on site. A lot of it's digital, so they can vet that information off-site.
And how are we going to be assured that that confidential information is not compromised when you start sending it to people?
They actually work through a program that's at the state level called SACE, and so that's actually a confidential database. And then they also put themselves through the contract process, just like you would for any other person contract that we have that vets our records, et cetera. They run through the same processes.
Same process that we use for speech services, because Corcoran and a lot of other districts do not receive in-person speech services for students who are secondary, 6th grade and above. They receive virtual services. So those speech providers are online, so they have access to our SACE records as well. And so they're vetted so that they understand confidentiality and they know they can't share information. I did look at the numbers that you had provided, and it was quite a shock that for a community as small as ours, our numbers are so high for students that need help. I think we were like short of Hanford, which has much more population. So it's just something to keep an eye on, though, because we want to make sure that we're utilizing the certain resources we have, especially in this times.
I think I'm happy that it's not something that's continuous, it's just for the year, and it's going to provide the guidance for our staff members. So that way that the teachers are going to be well educated and able to assist the child and have better communication with the district as to what that child's need is and place them in the correct classes, instead of constantly putting them in classes that they don't belong in.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
I,
Teresa, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Pupil personnel, consider approval for interdistrict transfers for the 2024-25 school year. Do I have a motion to consider the approval of the interdistrict transfers?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Any,
This might be where some of our economy. Exactly. That's quite a bit of students leaving our district for next year.
Yeah, so one of the things noted from the board that we definitely will take a deeper dive into the why. And one of the things that as Mr. Price had said, that as we were talking through this presentation that you just did, was making sure we see where it's happening at, right? That's part of it. And so that's where we start to dig deep into the numbers to identify, is it certain schools, et cetera, and we're gonna get down to that.
Another comment, do we even have parents are moving, I mean, it's out of our control?
Yeah, when you look at some of the documents, you do have families that are moving or whatnot, so it's not just all, they're out of the district, that type of thing, so. There's a higher transiency rate nowadays than we would have seen before as well.
any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
I,
Teresa, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Business, consider approval of a quote from Morris Levin and Son for the installation of light standards at John C. Fremont. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
I,
Teresa, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Consider approval of Central Valley Asphalt's proposal to resurface John Muir Middle School outdoor basketball courts. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
I,
Teresa, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Consider approval of Vera's Innovative Painters estimate number 329 and the Garland Company quote for the Kings Lake Education Center siding and painting project.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
I,
Teresa, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Consider approval of Oral E. Mitchum proposal for the Corcoran High School Science Wing Modernization and Kings Lake Education Center Food Service Building.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
I,
Teresa, Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Consider approval of the independent contractor services agreement with Oscar Mendoza to assist the business department.
Discussion. Is this a fiscal manager position?
Yes, this is.
When did you receive notice that you would agree with the department? The district, I should say.
Was April, sir. You see that in 2 weeks that I.
Beginning of April,
Yes, sir. She gave 2 weeks notice.
and when was it posted on? Bedjoin?
Well, we haven't posted on Edjoin and this is, the reason is because with the org audit, we don't know if that's gonna be the right position. And so we wanna make sure that we don't fly a position too far in advance without the investment of the org audit. And then what happens is we have a cart before the horse type of scenario.
But you're guaranteed the position right now because it's there, correct? The audit, there was never given a date when that audit would be completed. You ran that, you knew that position was vacant in April. When was the last day of work for that person?
23rd, sir.
May 23rd?
May 23rd.
Who's been doing the job since May 23rd or April 23rd?
I'm sorry, sir. Yes, May 23rd. I'm sorry. It was the beginning of May that we got the received notice. Man, May 23rd.
And May 23rd was the last day. Who's been doing the job since then? I have, sir. I'm sorry. And the problem I have is the audit that you're doing that we're always talking about. There's not a guarantee, especially with the fiscal condition of the state.
there's no guarantee, one way or the other, whether they're going to add positions or we're going to delete positions. Worst case scenario, we may be deleting the position. That position, that fiscal manager position, is already budgeted in the budget. It should have been flown when you received the notice. Not ask for somebody to help with clerical duties at $57.41 an hour, which they get to, again, work from remote.
Right, so part of the work with school services, they're actually fast tracking the audit piece for the business services, so they'll be providing a memo, I believe they said in early June. Based on the information that they give in order to be able to assess this position and what it should be. One of the reasons, and I'll just be, honest with the board that we saw, and again, Ms. Westball was an amazing employee and actually is going to the county office as a director of, I forget what the exact title is, but it's within the business department, is because of that. Is because again, our org structure had a manager, but in reality, that quality of person was a director. And so what's gonna happen is we're gonna have a revolving door in this instance. So if we go ahead and fly it again as a fiscal manager, do we come again in a year and have the same outcome? And also the quality of person, right? She was almost like an anomaly because I think she has her MBA and all this other stuff. So again, hence why she was swooped up into the organization, which is great. She's in our area, but that's why we want to make sure that we're again, looking at research, what are the principles, facts, and saying, okay, is it the best position? And just from my own experience, I would say that the manager itself is probably not the right level that it should be. But I want to make sure to confirm that. And so they're going to provide us with an early memo that would, because they've already said that they would be able to do that. And that was something that we asked them from the onset when we had the meeting, I believe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, when we started the conversation with them. And so they're gonna fast track that piece for us.
So you're looking to do a reclassification for the position?
It more than likely would be, yeah. And because it's management, it's different. Yeah, it's a different process.
This was an increase in pay, a considerable increase in pay. And looking at the state budget, I don't see that happening. Everybody's gonna have to tighten their belts, everybody. And we're going to be asking some very hard things for these working partners to do pretty soon, one way or the other. And I don't see that, me personally, I don't see that we're going to be able to be adding positions or upgrading positions with an additional pay when we have no idea what that person up in Sacramento will be doing in June. So for that, I'm saying no, but I'm gonna make a motion to table it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa,
Aye.
Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Resolutions, consider approval of resolution number 1378, ordering governing board member elections.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Valerie,
Aye.
Teresa,
Aye.
Sammy,
Aye.
and I. Personnel. We are in receipt of the following 2 items, personnel 1 and 2. Continue on, sorry, I wasn't supposed to read that. Consider approval of the California School Employees Association initial proposal for 2024-25 collective bargaining negotiations. First read, no vote. Consider approval of the Corcoran Joint Unified School District initial proposal for 2024-25 California School Employees Association collective bargaining negotiations. First read. Future agenda items.
I'd like for you to bring back. Hold on just a minute. board policy 1250. Visitors and outsiders for review, please.
Return to closed session at 7:31.